Do I?
They're in my tablet now.
Okay, good.
You want? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Alive. I'm always easy. Oh, it's just all dark.
Hmm? We're doing what? Doing what tonight? The Kahoot? No, not doing Kahoot. Thank you. Sorry. No, not doing Kahoot. You can do one if you want to. There's tons of them out there. Yeah.
I just want to go against.
They actually have some good ones.
You know what it is? So we did this.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Did you have a good spring break? Okay. You have a good spring break?
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, let's look at some panoramics that you turned in thus far. We'll look at those first, and then we'll get started with week 9. All right. So Pano, let's see here. Well, first of all, I want to show the ones that you showed me last week, the Alpine or week before last. This is at Aldine Park, right? Aldine Park? Is that right?
Yeah.
This is spray can paint, correct? At Aldine Park. So this is her masterpiece. She did good. I made this zombie bunny today. That one, and then this one here. About how long each one of these take to do?
The bunny was like taller than me, and I had to stand in the cooler, so that one probably took about 2.5 hours. The bear probably took like an hour.
Oh, okay.
I ran out of brown, that's why it's really patchy towards the legs.
Okay. All right. Well, good job.
Thank you.
I thought I'd put them up there for everybody to see them. And she was telling me that they people paint over them over time, right?
Oh, yeah, they're gone within a week.
Yeah. So good. All right. So let's look at this one here. Who did this panel here?
You're not supposed to tag
Oh, that was one actually I did for a demo, I think. Okay, demo maybe. Yeah. That one. Okay, how about this one? This looks over by the Rock River, it looks like. Who did this one? Or the person here? Who did that one? How many photos?
Oh, 7 or 8.
7 or 8 photos. And Let me see if I can bring this up a little bigger so everybody can see it. Any challenges with this one or pretty straightforward? Did you use a Dermander on this one?
No,
Or did you use Photoshop? Okay.
I had some trouble getting the right balance.
Because of the time of day? Yeah. Yeah, well, good job. Awesome. All right, let's go to the next one. And if you don't have yours uploaded, definitely get that done between now and Sunday. Who did this one here? So it's like the Mississippi, inside of the Mississippi, maybe? Not here? Okay. We had 2 students who are sick tonight, so this is Rose. Yeah, Rose is sick tonight. Let's see. Who did this one here? That person here? Yeah, did you do that? No? Well, let's see if we can find one that is here. All right. Looks like Chi-Town here. Who did this one? The person here? Nah? Okay. Well, good job. Person that's not here. Nelson did this one, and she went to Chicago. So, all right. So it looks like if you don't have yours up here, what we're going to do tonight is show you how to do it. If you haven't, how many did not do it yet? Raise your hand. You did not do this yet. All right, cool. We're going to do it right now. At least show you how to do it. So inside of week 9, the beginning task is completing Panoramic from week 8, viewing photos. And here is the steps. So what you'll need to do if you did not finish the Panoramic, we're going to do that right now in class. Those of you that did finish can go online and go on Facebook maybe, or on Twitter or something like that. But no, you can have fun looking at other photos and stuff like that if you want to. And so those of you that did not finish, but you brought your photos tonight, in fact, raise your hand if you brought your photos, but you did not finish. Right, so a few of you. All right, so what we'll do then is I'll walk you through those 2 that raise their hand. We'll walk you through how to do it from last week real quick. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to take your images, and I would suggest in class anyway using the Dermander, just because it's going to be quicker to do in class. And so you will download your photos into a folder on your desktop on your Mac, and then you're going to upload them into Dermander, and it will stitch them together to create the Panoramic. All right. So you can follow the steps, those 2 that raise your hand that have your photos. Everyone else will keep going tonight, and I'll come around and help those 2 that are working on theirs. So tonight we're going to talk about landscape photography. And landscape photography is the next step evolving after panoramics. And panoramics is something in photography that's pretty popular. Cityscapes are real popular in panoramics, mountainscapes, ocean, things of that nature. But there's going to be times where you want to get a little bit more creative with your photos and not just a boring, one-dimensional photo of a scene. And the simplest way to do this is what's called the aperture mode in your camera, the aperture setting. So a simple way to do it is to choose a small aperture setting, which would be a large number. So like an f-stop of, say, an aperture setting of, say, 10, 11, 9, 8, somewhere around there. Because remember, a larger number for aperture means a smaller aperture hole for the camera. And that's going to give you a greater depth within your photos. So also keep in mind, because you have less light hitting the image sensor, it'll compensate in the aperture mode for most of your cameras will compensate for the shutter speed for you. And it'll also increase the ISO. So of course, there's times where you want to get a great result with very, very shallow depth of field, like this one right here. And so this example here is a very shallower depth of field, not much, not really a big, a lot of depth to this one. Next is a tripod. This week, be a good idea if you have one to use a tripod. If you don't have one, you can definitely get away with not using a tripod, just lean against a tree or some stable apparatus, a picnic table, something like that, to where you can rest your arm against it while you're taking your photos. Also, again, make sure this week on your cameras, and by the way, I found another app that I recommend those of you using your phone. Before I forget, I will pull it up right now. I know a few of you use your phone to take your photos. This one does cost, but I was pretty impressed with it. So let me pull it up here. It's not a lot of money, but it's definitely worth it. But the reason I liked it was I had a lot of the manual settings that a lot of the apps don't have. So I had aperture mode, ISO mode, all within the app. Still pulling it up here, so bear with me. Okay, it's called Camera M as in Mary. Camera M as in Mary. And it's a camera dash M. And the M stands for manual. So camera dash N, M as in Mary was a good one. It has built into it. I'm looking at it right now. In fact, let me see if I can pull it up here on the overhead. But I played with it over the weekend quite a bit. Last week during break. And it works for your iPad as well if you have an iPad. These are some of the photos, by the way, that were taken with the app. It's got in it a depth mode, which would be cool for this week to use for the aperture mode. Dual camera mode gives you 2 full resolution images from both wide angle and telephoto lens both. Has a telephoto lens grid. Tells you see exactly what part of the camera feed will be included when working directly with telephoto lens, which you can get for your cameras now, for your phones now. They fit on the side of the phones or the iPad, and you can add in telephoto or micro. So here's some of the settings that's on it. You got a histogram built into it, which is nice. I played with it last week. White balance, exposure, focus, ISO, exposure duration. This is kind of cool. You can set the exposure duration of up to like 5 seconds of exposure. Gray card mode for precise white balance. You actually tap the area of your screen of your image that you want to focus on white balance. Has burst modes of 2, 5, 10, and 30-second timers. It has RAW format, which I've talked a little bit about in here. And the fact that with RAW format, you can do more post editing. 3D touch is used for resetting adjustments and just sliding your finger across the screen. And then location status adds into the image, and then camera roll. And so but was real impressed with it. So I recommend it. It's Camera M, Camera dash M. All right. So going on with the landscape, looking for a focal point, just like in your everything we've done so far, you need to look for a focal point for the photo. Like last week was the panoramic. Even in a panoramic, there's focal points. So an example like this Nelson photo here, what could be a focal point here or that you can see from this panoramic here? And it doesn't have to be something you would normally think would be a focal point. The what now? These over here? Right here? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where I was thinking was this could be the focal point of the image. Everything else is just kind of accessory to the image. And so the artist is wanting this to be a focal point, drawing in the grandeur of the Chicago skyline into this area here. So that could be the focal point for that. Now, was that her focal point? Don't know, but it could have been. And it makes sense. So even landscape, even panoramics have focal points as well. Landscapes do even more. You don't have as much width to deal with on landscape, but a little bit more than normal photography. And again, when you're doing landscape, you're taking your photo in landscape mode. So if you're using your phones, you're flipping around the landscape, your cameras from portrait to landscape. Without a focal point, though, everything looks pretty empty. And an example of that would be if we just took that out of the photo, totally took it out, right? Just cut it off here. It'd just be a normal panoramic of Chicago, I think, right? Nothing special about it. But adding that actually adds a little bit something to it, right? Adds a little bit more to the photo to where you're like, that's kind of cool. Didn't see that. Haven't seen that before from that perspective. So, and the key is this right here, and then this paragraph here, and this sentence right here where it says, if you don't have a focal point, it'll leave your viewers' eyes wandering through the image with nowhere to rest. And they generally move on very quickly to something else. Okay, like billboards is an example. Billboards, I saw tons of them coming back from Chicago last week. And you've all seen them as well. You have one main image. The one I saw, multiple billboards, was a hair growth company, I believe. Like 10 of them right in a row. 10 billboards right in a row. The football player's bald or almost bald on the first one. And at the 10th one, he actually has some hair. And I remembered that. I remember because it was kind of like a succession of billboards that had a story it built on from a prior billboard. But he was a focal point. His head, his bald head was a focal point up till he got some hair, which was, by the way, selling the product, which that's what they wanted to do. And we all could think about, the one I could think of I saw recently in Rockford was kind of cool. It was actually last year, was it's actually like a beer ad or something, but it actually had the bottle of beer extruding from the billboard. It was actually coming out from the top of it, of the billboard, which caught your eye. It was, again, something that was the focal point. But focal points, like it says here, can take many forms, and landscape can range from building, a structure, a tree, lamps that we saw here earlier on the Chicago skyline, a boulder, rock formation, silhouette of a married couple on a beach. So not only think not only that what the focal point is, but where you place it. And here comes the rule of thirds. Okay. So in this example here, remember the 1/3, 2/3 we've talked about. You can have 1/3 land, 2/3 sky, 1/3 sky, 2/3 land, 1/3 water, 2/3 sky, 2/3 water, 1/3 land, something like that. And so same deal with the rule of thirds. You're keeping in perspective the rule of thirds. Like in this example here, you'll notice the mountains on this rule of thirds, this upper left quadrant. The bottom right quadrant is the flowers, the daffodils, which is really kind of, this represents kind of wintry event. This represents more of a summer. So you kind of have a dichotomy of those two in one picture that brings in the depth of the photo. And I don't know if you noticed, but actually, if I noticed this a while back when I was showing this, was there's actually a few flowers sticking up higher than the other flowers, but you don't notice it until after you've seen it for a while. And that's a good thing. You want your photo to keep your eyes to keep wandering to different spots. That's a good thing. That means you're kind of like those photos. It's a bad example, but the photos we've all looked at where you have to look at for a certain period of time for something to jump out at you. Have you seen those before? So kind of like that. You want some type of hidden gems. Like I'm going to DC next week. And by the way, I'm glad I mentioned that. Next Tuesday, you don't need to come to class. We are going to have a live video feed, though, of our class. I will give you a link of where to click on. You can do it from home. But I'll be in DC next Tuesday for a conference, and I'll actually be in Washington, DC, somewhere in Washington, DC, doing a live broadcast of next week's class, and you guys will be able to bring it in. I'll bring you into that, and we'll have some cool place in Washington, DC, and we'll walk around and look at some stuff and talk about a little bit of the sites there. So we'll do that next week. Sound good? And I'll remind you of it so that you don't have to come to class. You can come in here and log in just like you would normally do, but I won't be here. You'll actually be seeing a feed of me, a live feed in DC. Sound good? But when you're thinking of, the reason I mentioned the DC trip, I'm thinking of bringing a whole bunch of little ugly trinkets to DC and to place them like on the Jefferson Memorial and all these different, famous spots, and taking photos to see if people can spot them later. Like a little trinket, like the little gnome things, or little bitty. We have these little RV bobbleheads, and we have these ugly buttons and stuff like that. And just put them in weird places in the photo to where you're really not gonna. It's not gonna jump out at people. But see if they notice it by looking in the photo. So we'll be doing some of those, by the way, live next Tuesday. You guys are going to show me where you want me to place the trinket at, is what I want you to do. Kind of tell me where to put it at. All right, so that'll be fun. So foregrounds. One element also in your photography that we're going to start playing around this week is some type of foreground. Like in this example here, the mountains is a background for sure, right? But this whole daffodil is a foreground popping up in front of us as a kind of it pops out this mountain view. It kind of really pops it out for us to view better. And so be careful also on placing things in front of your object as well. That's going to be complementary to that focal point. Like these flowers are very complementary. Like the 3 bulbs here are very complementary, I believe, to the entire image. And I just now noticed one of them's burnt out. Okay. You see more stuff. That's good. You want to go back and see more. You start noticing things in more detail on interesting photos. So foregrounds, one way also of doing this on the foregrounds is when you're taking a photo of a landscape, putting branches in front of your corner of your camera view somewhere with leaves that you normally maybe wouldn't do. You think would be a distraction that could bring a foreground into it. Getting on the ground level with a landscape also, or getting up higher also is a different perspective with foregrounds. Consider the sky. Another element to consider is the sky in your landscape. Many landscapes either have a dominant foreground or dominant sky. Unless you have one or the other, your shot can end up being real boring. So you wouldn't want a 50% sky, 50% land. You would want kind of a 1/3, 2/3 type of scenario. So if you have a bland, boring sky, don't let it dominate your shot by placing the horizon in the upper third. However, you want to make your foreground interesting. So if the sky is filled with drama and interesting cloud formations, which we have a lot this time of year, that's a good thing. It makes your pictures actually even more better output than otherwise. If we just had boring San Francisco, California skies, which is the same every day. And I know people that live there, by the way, and they actually tell me, I said, man, it'd be great to live there. And I'm like, it gets pretty boring here because it's literally the same weather all year round. There's no changes. But I think I could handle that for a little bit probably. Goes on, talks about the enhancing skies in post-production. You can use filters for that like you did with your manipulation lab, which you guys are great at. So you can do like a polarizing filter, and polarizing filters are available both in Photoshop and in Pixlr both. The one I like in both of them is the lens flare. That's a good one as well, that you can add contrast to it. So here's an example I really like of a highway. It's a dark night. The sun's setting over in the left. and you see the lights. It looks like lights, but it's actually the stripes in the middle of the road, freshly painted stripes, it looks like. But the sky is kind of dark and the road is also dark. But the one thing that pops out to me anyway is the lines in the road. Okay, these lines in the road really pop out. That's what I noticed first. I don't know about you, but as I go down this way with my eyes, they naturally come over this way and see the beautiful sunset. Right? Starts out here and then comes over here. And so this really is your foreground that the photographer wanted. They knew it'd be the first thing people would see because of the brightness. Remember, we talked about light always attracts people's eyes first to the photo, whatever is light in the photo. And so light transfer over to more of a dark, but beautiful sunset. The other is lines, like this one here has a lot of lines in it. It's got the lines from the road. It's got the lines from the white lines. It's got the lines from the mountains coming down. It's got the lines from the water over here coming this way. So a lot of lines all leading to this area right here, which if you look at this photo long enough, you begin to wonder what's beyond this. And that's a good thing. You want your photos to have something to be desired beyond the photo, if that makes sense. Good film does that, good movies, good endings of movies, good cliffhangers of season finales of TV shows, right? Always do that, right? They leave you hanging with the person hanging off a scaffold, somebody screaming, and impending doom and death. That's the end of it right there. You have to wait a whole another 3 months to see, right? Then the next show. That's what pictures should do. It should leave you hanging to want more of you as a photographer and also of that photo. So lines ask a question. How am I leading the eyes of the viewer? So look for lines this week in your landscape. And landscape's an awesome way to do it because you have a lot more width to deal with in a portrait photos. And there's a number of ways of doing this. Remember, one of the best ways into the shot is to provide viewers with lines that lead into the image. You give depth, scale, point of interest, and in and of itself can create even a pattern. Movement, capturing movement. Now, when most people think of landscapes, they think of calm, serene, passive environments. However, landscapes are rarely completely still, and you found that out this week probably when you did the panoramic, especially as you're moving your camera. Things move, leaves move, scenery moves sometimes, water. Same thing in panoramic, or same thing in landscape. You're going to have movement, but that's okay. It'll add to the drama, the mood, and create point of interest. An example, things we usually don't think of as being good for photos are actually good for this and capturing movement, which is wind in the trees, which we have a lot here, right? A lot of wind in Rockford. Waves on the beach, water flowing over a waterfall, birds flying over the air, leaves blowing in the air, we could say even. Moving clouds, fog, all those things we maybe think of as distraction can actually be a good thing for movement. So capturing movement generally means you need to have a longer shutter speed, okay? So you can change it to shutter mode if you have movement in your landscape. You can change it to the shutter mode, which would control your aperture, remember? An aperture controls your shutter mode. You're in aperture mode. So more light is now hitting your sensor with the shutter at longer openings, which means you need to go for a smaller aperture. So the way around that in your settings of your camera is just use the shutter mode or shutter priority. It'll take care of your aperture for you. Also, it says some sort of filter or even shoot at the start and end of a day, which I recommend for landscape this week, is shooting your landscape photos early morning, right when the sun comes up. Well, it's actually later now because of daylight saving times. It's not as early as it used to be, right? So I usually get up about 4:15, and it used to start getting dark or light around 5-ish, but now it's totally pitch dark at 5 o'clock still. It doesn't get lights around 6:30. But if you're not an early person, wait till the sun's setting and you get beautiful shots at sunset, beautiful sunsets. Or if we have ominous skies and clouds, that's great too. That's a good thing as well. But just remember, if you have movement in your landscape, to do aperture mode. If you don't have movement, do shutter mode. Here's another cool one. This one is a pasture area of a farm, which you'll notice does not take a lot of space, but it does have lines here, a very prominent line. But this right here, line there, even though we could actually say the line doesn't have to be perfect, but a line here in the clouds. But okay, let me ask you this. When you look at this photo here, where's your eyes drawn to first on this photo here? Who said what?
I said the sky.
I think it's the mountain on the side.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
Cloud.
The light crowd, or this here? This here?
Yeah.
The dark one?
Right.
Okay. How many saw the dark one first? This little dark spot here. Yeah, that's what I saw first, that dark spot. I don't know if that means you have a morbid sense of humor or or what, but that's what draws me to it personally. Then after I see that dark spot, then I start seeing the bright clouds and all the mountains to the right, and even over here, some sunlight and break in the clouds over there. So weather's good though. It does bring texture and things of that nature to your photos. So work with weather. Instead of waiting for a nice sunny day, which we always do when we first start taking photos, we don't need to do that. We can take advantage of the weather by whether it's an overcast sky, like it says in the second paragraph there, or threatening rain. Might be a great opportunity to create an image, real mood, and ominous overtones. So look for storms, look for wind, look for mist, look for dramatic clouds, sunshine through the darkness, like in the image we just looked at, rainbows, sunsets, sunrises, work with the variation. And you can even do post-editing with all of that. And then golden hours, this photographer chatted with one photographer recently who told him that he never shoots during the day. He only shoots around dawn and dusk only, because that's when the light's the best for landscape. And I think that's true. I know in the early morning, I was raised on a farm, and I know in the early morning, you have a lot of dew on the ground everywhere. Doesn't matter where you live. We have more in some places than others probably. But I remember, when the sun's coming up over the pasture, over the farm, and hitting the grass or the farmland, either one, you have that glistening effect, kind of a shiny, glittery effect from the water beads on the grass and on whatever the type of crop you have. And it literally looks like it's sparkling early in the morning when the sun's coming up. You get to see it at nighttime, but not as well as the early morning. And again, that fresh mist of water with the sun hitting it, you get a lot of rich, bright light and colors that you don't get any other time during the day. And so I agree with this photographer that early morning, I personally like early morning better, but dusk works good as well. And it goes on and says that the golden hours, early morning or dusk, dawn or dusk, are great for landscape for a number of reasons. None of the least, which is the golden light that often it presents us with. The other reason he says he loves it is the angle of the light, because it's literally instead of high noon, the light's bouncing off of all the objects around us on either dawn or dusk. And so it makes things different. Things just look different. Everything looks different. I know I actually like after a big storm, like a big thunderstorm or rainstorm, right after it's over, when the sun comes out and you have everything pretty much soaked, but then that kind of warm golden color that goes over everything because of that, the sun hitting the rain right afterwards is just beautiful, I think, right after a big rain. Horizons, talk about that. So it's an old tip, but a good one. Before you can take a landscape, you should always consider the two fronts on horizons. Is it a straight line? While you can't always find a straight image, can't always straighten things in your photo when you're taking it, you can post-production twist it. We've all done it before. Just twist the image a little bit and make it a little straighter for the lines. Where is it compositionally? A compositionally natural spot for horizons on one of the third lines, the upper lower third, either one. So you just want to stay out of the middle. Of course, rules are meant to be broken. Here's a cool one. Find that unless it's a very striking image, the rule of thirds usually works. But here's one where it breaks the rule of thirds. It's right down the middle, literally right in the middle. You got the land and you got the road right in the middle. But the difference is, I think, is a perspective. The photographer literally lays on the road in between the two yellow lines to get the perspective. And that's a cool example of breaking a rule of thirds, because it's literally 50-50 on the road and the vegetation of the trees. But cool example of breaking the rules and making it look cool. So point of view is another one. And this is going to be a good one. So, you know, scenic lookout, you're going to, let's say, I don't know, Galena, right? Tons of scenic looks out between here and Galena on 20. If you've never been there, go there. It's a great weekend trip or afternoon trip. Takes a couple hours to get there, and between here and there, you can really see tons of beautiful landscape, places you can climb up and get in. Take in the city of Galena itself, a big hill you can go up on top of and look down over the city and over all the houses and things. So it's, you know, great place to go to do that. I like going there because it kind of reminds me where I was brought up. I was brought up in the Ozarks in Missouri, and so all the land is all like that. Just a lot of hills, up and down, rocks, limestone, streams. So get out of your car. We grab our camera. We walk up. We raise up high to take the photo. We rotate a little left to the right, zoom in, zoom out, and then we leave. We've all done it, right? However, we can take, to get the wow shot, sometimes you need to get out a little bit more and you need to change your perspective. Just like in life, sometimes you got to get out, do other things, change your perspective to get a different viewpoint. So it might be like a scene you drive by every day around your house or wherever, is getting a different perspective of that scene. So whether it be, it could be, you know, crouching down on the ground. It could be getting up higher, a different angle, going down an unbeaten path somewhere to take a better shot. Whatever it might be, to get a better vantage point of where normal people take photos in that area, right? And we've all done that. So trying to get a different perspective is always also something I want you to be thinking about this week when you're doing landscape. You know, you're not going to take as many photos this week, so you have more time to spend on, I think, really rule of thirds, focal point, perspective. That's what I really want you to focus on this week. And hopefully that'll help you kind of understand that better. Environment is also good to have different viewpoints. So that's the notes there. All right, now I want to go to next one here. We did the podcast. We got some examples we're going to look at. Nope, that's not it. This one here. All right, so we got 3 links, and then you're going to answer a question at the end of the exercise after we look at it. So what you're going to be doing as we're looking through these photos is what does landscape photography capture that's unique from portrait photography? Taking pictures of people. So why do you think it's different? We're just going to kind of look at some images. These are 36 stunning examples of landscape photography. And website's taking forever. Let's just go down to ones that are loaded. Okay. And let's see if I can. Landscape, again, instead of like you did this, we get, multiple successions for your pano. This is just one isolated scene. And we're just going to kind of look at these. I'm not really trying to comment on any of them. Just kind of look at the landscape, look at what you think pops out to you as a focal point on each one of these. And it can be different. Doesn't have to be the same for everybody. For some reason, that one reminds me of the Field of Dreams movie. The Field of Dreams show movie. You guys seen that one? The baseball movie. I think it's Kevin. Who is it in that? Who's in that one? Yeah, Kevin Costner. Field of Dreams. Whoa. I said I wasn't going to say anything, but that one's pretty cool. Huh?
I like that one the best.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. A different perspective there for sure.
Is it looking down at?
Yeah, it's looking down from the valley. A couple skiers down here. I saw a commercial or not. If you guys have seen it, it's I know they have. I've never seen a video of it. It was a mom and daughter going on a trip, and they were skiing at night with lights on the path of the ski. The ski slope had really cool kind of lights. I've never seen that before. Looked really pretty. Oh yeah, we'll go to sleep now. That one puts you to sleep right there. And that one. All right, so let's see another link here is this one here, Boar Panda, amazing landscape photos. 50 mind-blowing examples of landscape photography. And I'm just gonna try to see if I can expand my monitor on this one a little bit. There you go. I think that'll work. A little too big right there. Let's do full screen. There we go. That's the first one. It's called Lavender Sunrise. Sunflowers. Deep red. It's got lightning in the background over in here. That was called Apocalypse. Bamboo Forest. Wow. Frozen Forest.
Trees are pretty.
Bolivia. Bag and balloons. A bunch of hot air balloons. Looks like a castle or something there. The Church of the Good Shepherd. This one is post-production, by the way, a little bit. But pretty cool, right? Tulip fields. That's a lot of tulips. This is a rice field at sunset. And the light shine. It almost looks like mirrors. That's pretty awesome. Everything's fog, but the steeple, the tops of the houses there. Almost looks like a Windows desktop, like a Windows 10 desktop. Fields of tea. A little umbrella there. Blue pond and first snow. Autumn with the tractor. Oh yeah. We got a tractor way back here. Pretty cool. Any farm kids in here besides me? Any other farm kids? Okay. 2 people. All right. All right. That's pretty cool. Light colors. Maybe some post-production on that one. I'm guessing. Still pretty cool though. Tender nature. That's in the shape of a heart. The tree is.
Probably that's why they call it
Yeah.
tender, huh?
You guys see that commercial of the I think it's the daughter. They tear down the tree that was next to the house they grew up. The mom and dad carved their initials in when they were young, and they made the table out of it. And then mom and dad walked in, and they showed them. They didn't know, they just thought it was a new table, but then they showed them the carving of their initials in the table. You guys seen that commercial? That kind of reminds me of this tree. You know, we'll have some type of memory like that. If you don't, I hope you get one day. Tree like that, or some memory of a location like that. Northern Lights. Tupin's Field. Morning. Daffodils. A lot of daffodils. Bluebell Sunrise. Painting of Nature. Red District. Whatever that name is. Magic Forest. Navarian Field. That's quite a hill.
Is that grass?
Yeah, it's a hill, but look how steep it is. It starts here and goes up. The road goes on and on. Fields of Gold. Tunnel of Love. It's got train tracks. Train tracks in this. Pretty cool. Japan Flower Park. Netherlands Flower Park. Wisteria tunnel of gardens. Walking through a flower garden of flowers. In the mist. On the fields of peel. Under a blood red sky. Rain of spring. There's a kid dancing in the right tree there. Rapeseed of the tree. Twinkly mess. Purple. Yeah, that's purple. Lost an ocean of red. Securus. Can you suggest the 51st? So that was some pretty mind-blowing landscapes there. And then examples of landscape. Let's go through these quickly. Slowly go down and just look at them. Again, be thinking of what you think is different about landscapes and portrait photography. This is the last set we're going to look at, and then you're going to make a comment on the in-class post. We'll just kind of look at these last few. All right. So in week 9 exercise, go ahead and make your comment there. You should hopefully be able to post something. There you go. So just post a sentence or whatever on what does landscape photography capture in your opinion that's unique from portrait photography that you cannot capture in portrait photography. What's unique about it? Okay, you should be finishing up hopefully. I want to go over the take home. Like I told you, pretty simple this week. You're just going to take 10 photos of 10 different landscape settings. And that means, different photo settings around your town that you live in. If it's here in Rockford, that's great. Or if you want to travel, that's great. Just, you don't have to. Upload them to week 9, and that's it. I just want you to have fun with it this week as far as different perspective, focal point, using the rule of thirds. Those 3 things, work on that. The settings on your camera we talked about was aperture mode or shutter priority, those 2. Aperture mode is going to be helpful if you have movement in your landscape. Shutter priority will be if you want more depth of field in your landscape. And also remember to bring in foreground somewhere in that landscape, whether it be branches, some trees, whatever it might be flowers like in the examples we looked at. Make sense? And you'll upload those to week 9. If you've yet to upload your panoramic, please do so between now and Sunday. I think I told you before break to take at least 3 sets of panoramics and then upload one that you like. And again, you can still use Photoshop or the Dermander. I'd recommend doing both. If you have Photoshop, do Dermander and Photoshop both. If you don't have Photoshop, just do Dermander. It'll work fine for you. The Dermander one I think you'll like, just setting up the account and being able to share your panoramics in a more richer environment. It's a more interactive environment for people. If you want to post on Facebook or Twitter or something like that, people can click around and move around that panoramic more so than just a panoramic image. Make sense? So we'll have those done by Sunday on the panoramics and also the take home between now and next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, are we having in-class session next Tuesday? Okay, I'll be linking in our class for next week in week 10, a link for you to click on. That's all you'll have to do. And it'll bring the live feed in of my computer in DC. And then I'll have you help me find some spots to take some photos and maybe put some weird trinkets around and have some fun with that. And so you'll actually be, how many's been to DC, by the way? Anybody been to DC? Cool. So I'll actually lean on some of you here that have been there because this is my first time. So you might help me out a little bit. You'll be kind of my virtual tour guide, even though you're going to be here. You kind of help me around a little bit. I'm getting a lot of pointers from people on where to go, what not to do, what to do. One of the pointers I got yesterday was to go at night to figure out where you want to go. And then in the daytime, go those places. Because in the daytime, there's a lot more people and, harder to get around, evidently. And so,
Sometimes aren't that bad.
Yeah, because I'm going to try to go on a Monday. I'm going to try to go on a Monday. That's the day I'm going. So we'll find out. And so people tell me to do bus tours and get off and then take my photos, get back on the bus. So I'll probably do whatever I feel like doing. But if you have pointers for me, definitely shoot me an email or tell me what you think is best to go see. Love to do it. Huh? Everything. Yeah, that's what some people tell me to do. Just see everything. See as much as you can. So anyway, we'll be doing that next Tuesday and have fun with it. Otherwise, we're done for the night. If you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, see you next Tuesday virtually. Have fun. And did you want to come up and I can help you with your thing?
All right, so I don't know how to save on this to my desktop, a picture.
Okay. Let me go ahead and stop